from Hockenheim. A couple of guys who may well be able to do something. Jacques Villeneuve in 13th position. Somewhere on the ground there, and I believe it's pretty hot on the ground too, as Matthew White, who's been in Germany for a week covering the bikes and of course Formula One, as we look at Rubens Barrichello. Matty, just how hot is it at the moment?
Bit of deja vu here, Woodsy. When I last spoke to you from Sachsenring, it was the hottest part of the day, and we've achieved that again right now. Ambient, it's around 34 degrees, but on the track, I can tell you that it has spiked in the last 10 minutes by 3 degrees. It's up to 48 degrees now on the track. If you go back to Friday, the track temperature was hovering around 44. Saturday qualifying, it was about 48. They were reckoning that it's going to get to about 50 for the race. So I can tell you right now it's 48 degrees. The atmosphere is awesome, but it is really hot for both the fans, especially the drivers, and not to mention the tyres.
You've been hunting around the garages, mate. What can you tell us about pit stop strategy?
Well, we understand that Ferrari is planning a free stopper, and we also understand that that was in fact Rubens' choice, and Michael has decided to follow. So look out for the boys in red to come in 3 times. Toyota will probably follow that strategy as well. Olivier Panis and Cristiano are planning 3. Both Williams and McLaren are keeping their stops very close to their chest. We actually just checked in with the Williams boys, and they just didn't want to tell us, to put it flatly. And also we had a good chat to Mark Webber's dad, Alan, and he seems to be quietly confident that Mark's in for a pretty good day. He didn't want to give too much away, but we've been digging around, Woodsy, and I can tell you that we think that Mark and the Jag boys are looking for a 2-stopper.
So, tremendous excitement there. I mean, you've been to the Sachsenring. They love their motorcycle racing, but the support there for Michael and Ralph, among others, of course, is tremendous. It's a noisy place.
Oh, it's incredible. I said it to you in RPM, Billy. They love 3 things here: Michael, Ralph and air horns. And I think it's probably the only place in the world where Formula One cars, which operate, I think, at around 127 decibels when they're flying down the main straight, actually get swamped by the sound of air horns. It really is something unique. And also, as you would have seen from that vision, this place is effectively half of it anyway is cut into the side of a forest, so it's a terrific atmosphere here. I can just also update you on some news from the tyres. Of course, there's only 2 Bridgestone tyres in the top 10 with Barrichello and Schumacher, and if you go back through Friday and Saturday, you see that Michelin has really been dominating. We've just got some word in from both Michelin and the Bridgestone boys. Michelin expect to lose around 2 seconds per lap in race conditions, and Bridgestone expect to lose 1. So Bridgestone are pretty confident that their race tyre is up to this race.
Well, as the smoke rises and the horns bellow, we'll leave you there, mate. Enjoy the race, and we'll enjoy it a few thousand kilometres away.
Have great fun.
Thank you, Matthew White at Hockenheim. They're warming those tyres now, Neil, which isn't too difficult in the conditions. As Matthew pointed out, very, very hot. We look at the Constructors' Championship, and on that subject, great defensive driving from Ferrari in terms of the disadvantage they've had in recent rounds. But interesting comments from Matthew there and yourself about the tyre war here. It could well decide the race.
Yeah, we've been talking tyres a lot in recent races, and it's certainly a smouldering issue. There's been very little between them. 6 wins and 6 pole positions for Bridgestone and 6 and 5 for Michelin, and certainly they look strong tonight, but there's been quite a bit of discussion about the fact that Michael's opted for a harder tyre and feels that he may have a consistent package, and the opposition are expecting that. One of the interesting things to contemplate about this circuit, even though the old character of the circuit's changed a bit, Billy, they still run here 65% of the lap at 100% throttle. They're actually on it, hard on it, for 12 seconds between turns 4 and 6 in what we sort of loosely describe as the straight, and then that huge stop down to the hairpin. It's a reasonably high grip track, but obviously as the temperature goes up, the grip goes down, and they tend to use tyres that are from the softer end of the scale. And you may recall in RPM earlier today made mention of the fact that Bridgestone alone took 1,400 tyres, all sorts of various compound and construction options, 8 of them in total for this race, and they obviously have to have enough of them to be able to supply all the tyres to all of the teams should they choose to go a certain way.
Juan Montoya chasing 6 consecutive podium finishes. Jean Todt there in the middle looking up at the screen. As usual, the centre of attention. How do they beat the Williams front row? It's been an awesome performance as a team.
Norbert Haug from Mercedes-Benz Motorsport, and he'll be focusing his attention on Kimi Räikkönen.
The pole sitters won 6 of the last 10 races here, which is against the trend of recent rounds. And as they slow down and get ready to line up, we will hand over to Martin and James.
And it's a big corporate battle as well as a personal battle between the drivers.
Feel the revs rising, the temperatures sky high already. Michael Schumacher engages first gear. Everybody engages first gear. The last man pulls into position. Charlie Whiting on the starting gantry, the official starter. Looks to see for the green flag. Do we have it? Yes, we do. Anytime now, we'll be racing at Hockenheim. 4 lights, 5 lights when they go off. It will be go! Stunning start by both of the Williams. Ralf Schumacher goes defensive. Oh no! Raikkonen's got involved as well in a big shunt there. Rubens Barrichello's front left wheel has been misplaced. Raikkonen, a big impact, and quite a few of the cars further back have been affected as well. Michael Schumacher is okay, and so are both of the 2 Williamses, but Raikkonen is out of the race, one of the championship contenders.
And there's more fuss. Ralf Furman caught up in it. He's lost the nose. Safety car has been deployed. A lot of debris on the racetrack. Raikkonen, a big incident there, because although you're just from a standing start, they're still doing over 150 miles an hour when they reach that corner. And on 3 wheels, these cars do not stop at all well. You're skidding along the road in a toboggan. But unfortunately for Kimi Raikkonen, it's not a red flag, it's a safety car procedure. Otherwise there would be a restart and he could get back in. Michael Schumacher had a very slow start, and he was behind. He was behind Kimi Raikkonen, so was it indeed Barrichello with also an equally slow start? How did Raikkonen end up contacting a Ferrari?
Well, Ralf Schumacher got very defensive, I could see, as he came across. Look at that, cutting across, Martin.
Yes, he does, and he really goes to cover the ground, and he squeezes Rubens, and Raikkonen was trying to take advantage of all of that, and also then Raikkonen hit the left rear wheel of Ralf Schumacher, and that is a big mess against the barrier. Look, Montoya away well, and Ralf Schumacher coming to defend the line, squeezing, and Barrichello nowhere to go. Raikkonen trying to benefit from the whole thing, gets taken out, and the Ferrari front left is off too, and later on we're going to see a Jordan and a Jaguar getting together. So at the moment, Barrichello, Raikkonen and Furman have all stopped out on the racetrack, and there will be other wounded cars too.
There will indeed. Ralf Furman hit the back of one of the Saubers very hard. A huge piece of his front wing went flying up into the air as well. We saw there's Ralf Schumacher. He was involved in that contact. He looked like he took a big knock. Look at the side pod of that car. Now we've got to worry about the cooling, because there's an awful lot of the cooling of the car in that area. They're taking a look to see if this car is serviceable. Now remember, this is another championship. He's climbing out. He's climbing out of the car. Ralf Schumacher is out too. So we've lost 2 of our 4 championship contenders this afternoon, and he can't believe it.
Bad news for Raikkonen, good news for Michael Schumacher, and if this race goes into its 2nd lap, then it'll be a 2-part race, even if they do show the red flags. Ted.
Yes, Martin, the feeling at Williams was that there was too much damage to the radiator. They could have sent him back out, but it would just have overheated, and there'd have been no way he could have continued. Justin Wilson, meantime, into the pits, as is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, but I think he's out of the race with no rear wing.
Yes, and Raikkonen there, he made quite heavy contact with the Williams, and then very heavy contact with the very beginning of the tyre wall there, James. So lucky he didn't hit something rather harder. And there it is, Barrichello squeezed, and Raikkonen trying to grab an opportunity and gets wiped out.
Watch out for Furman in the bottom of your screen here. The yellow Jordan, there he is in the bottom. Look at him hit the Sauber. Whack! Front wing up in the air. No wonder Heinz-Harald Frentzen lost his rear wing. He's lucky he didn't lose more. Well, there's Raikkonen, and he is not at all happy about what's happened here. He's had a big impact as well. There's Charlie Whiting just assessing the scene, looking to see that they're clearing away the debris. Let's bring you up to date then as we pause for breath. Ralf Schumacher walking away as well. Frentzen, Wilson, Barrichello, Raikkonen and Furman are all in the pits or have stopped. We'll keep you updated on that. Montoya's leading. Trulli, Ralf Schumacher, Alonso and Michael Schumacher the top 4.
Both Ferraris very slow away, and that really was the cause of the incident. But it lays also at the door of Ralph, who was wandering across the racetrack and not leaving Barrichello anywhere to go. But he would not know that Barrichello had another car to his left. This is on board with Michael Schumacher having a poor start. He's passed by 2 already, and that's the rear shot from Ralf Schumacher as Raikkonen goes straight to the scene of the accident, and more carnage going on behind them. So they've crossed the line then. Clearly we're not in a red flag situation, we're in a safety car only, and they've got to get rid of some of that debris down there at turn 1, and a Jaguar caught up in there too. Wilson has pitted at the end of this lap, so Wilson in for some repairs.
Yes,
and
it looked like Wilson, sorry Martin, it looked like Wilson just tangled as he was going around the outside of Barrichello's car. It looked just tangled with one of the Jordans, presumably firm, and that's the damage you can see that Ralf Schumacher sustained, and clearly far too much to allow that car to continue.
Yes, the side pods are full of electronic parts and crucial control systems and lines, fluid lines or whatever, all sorts, and especially of course the radiators. So it was quite every time you see it you realise it was a bigger impact than first expected. It looked as if Raikkonen just tagged Ralph, but actually it was quite a wallop, wasn't it?
It was. I mentioned Justin Wilson then just a second ago. You can see his teammate Mark Webber zigzagging in the snake there. Wilson appears to have retired from this Grand Prix, so in his debut for the Jaguar team, poor old Justin Wilson, and poor old Rubens Barrichello as well. Such a fantastic performance 2 weeks ago at Silverstone, but he gets no further than the first lap here at Hockenheim.
Well, the big winner was Mark Webber from 11th to 5th. Again, therefore, obviously of 6 places. Alonso gained 5. Coulthard gained 4 places. Here is another replay of that start. The tardy Ferraris really mixing the pack up. Renault getting away beautifully. And in the back there, Villeneuve going around. That is where a lot of... Oh, there was 2 incidents there then for the Jaguar of Wilson. Firstly, tagging with Villeneuve, and then again with the Jordan. And the safety car is in at the end of this lap, and that means right now he's at the pit lane entry.
Yes, so Montoya picks up the pace, then we'll be racing again here at Hockenheim. He boots it out of the final corner. He's already got quite a head start on the 2 Renaults. A fantastic restart then for Juan Pablo Montoya. He leads, Trulli 2nd, Alonso 3rd, Michael Schumacher 4th, Webber 5th, 6th is Coulthard, 7th Panis, 8th D'Amato, 9th Fisichella, and 10th is Nick Heidfeld. Jenson Button, having started right towards the back of the grid, is now up into 11th place. Verstappen, Villeneuve and Chiesa rounding out the top 14, and we have only 14 cars still in this Grand Prix on lap 4.
Bad news then for us, the viewers, having lost so many cars. Great news for Montoya. Really, his 2 of his main championship contenders are gone, and Michael Schumacher pegged back there in 4th place. Coulthard looking pretty feisty behind Webber and ready to seize if he's given half a chance. There then clearly is Michael Schumacher, the sole remaining Ferrari in this Grand Prix, and the 2 Toyotas line astern in 7 and 8. You
can see Webber with Coulthard right behind him there, putting a lot of pressure on. Another disappointing qualifying session for David Coulthard, down in 10th place. Hasn't yet put that bogey behind him, but his race performances all season have been stunning, and today he certainly looks set to attack. He's in 6th place already, and a long race ahead of him.
Yeah, the problem he's got, of course, he had to take the spare car at the last minute yesterday, and he never did really get a good lap out of that, either in the 15-minute warm-up or the qualifying itself. And with the new system, you're locked into that car, so he's not been able to make any changes worth talking about. So whatever handling imbalance he had in qualifying, he's surely got to carry all the way into the Grand Prix, and just slipping back a bit now from the Jaguar of Webber.
Well, it's very good news for the 2 Renaults. They find themselves 2nd and 3rd. There you can see in your picture, Trulli leading Alonso. Been very strong there for Renault recently. Now, Alonso was one of the drivers who had to make some changes to his car. He had a brake system problem yesterday in qualifying. He had to change that. It's one of the things that compromised his qualifying lap, but that has been changed for the race. So he's pretty confident he's got a car under him that he can express himself in and do the business. There's Justin Wilson, who appears to have got himself out. Clearly, Jaguar feeling that they want him to put some miles on the car to get used to the feel of the Jaguar, even though he's going to be a lap down on the rest to start with. There's still a long way to go in this race. Points might be possible even if we have enough dropouts between now and the end of this Grand Prix. So Jaguar have got Wilson going again.
Good news, very good news then. So that puts us up to 15 runners, and Ted is down at Jaguar.
Yes, it was the replacement of the left front suspension for Justin Wilson. They thought it was worth taking the time to replace that suspension, the steering arm, the wishbone, all of that, just to give Justin some mileage. He really needs it in race conditions, so they've sent him out, fixed it, sent him out for some valuable laps.
So he's currently 4 laps down on race leader Montoya on the timesheets, but anything can happen between now and the end. Justin Wilson pushing hard then for Jaguar, as we rode on board there with David Coulthard in 6th place.
Montoya then with a comfortable 2-second advantage. Fastest lap already into the 1:15s, James. That's fast, isn't it? That's a very, very fast pace for Montoya already this afternoon.
Certainly the fastest race laps last year. Ferrari had a 1:16.4, so we're already a good slab faster than that. Montoya leading then, the 2 Renaults behind. Michael Schumacher in 4th, just watching and waiting.
Welcome back to Hockenheim, and if you've just joined us, there was an extraordinary first corner crash which took out 6 cars, including 3 championship contenders. One of those 6, Justin Wilson, has returned to the race to make up a field of 15. The big winners, well, Mark Webber of Australia moving up as we run through the positions now to 5th position. Michael Schumacher in 4th, but more importantly, it's what's happened around him that has affected his championship defence, and that is the loss of Ralf Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello and Kimi Räikkönen, Neil.
It's pretty bizarre to lose so many key players in the first couple of 100 metres of this motor race, and kind of disappointing in some respects, but terrific to see Mark in amongst it, and this may be a little bit of fortune for him in his 2003 season. His lap times at the moment are obviously being interfered with by the traffic with the battle that he's having here with Coulthard. He's in the 17s, but he has actually reeled off some 16s. Meanwhile, Montoya has done the quickest lap of the race so far.
That's the Coulthard pass on Mark, which now puts him P5.
And 15.8 for Montoya, the fastest lap so far. And this is a spirited battle between Webber and Coulthard. Terrific stuff here. Watch this again. A hard way to do it on the outside of the hairpin, but holds track position. So Montoya, Trulli, Alonso, Schumacher, Coulthard, Webber. And Schumacher already down in the low 16s, and Montoya's last lap a 16 flat. So that equalisation of performance between the 2 tyre brands is turning out to be something of a reality, Billy.
And the Renaults are under threat from Michael. Montoya getting a very nice gap though, so when they go to the first round of pit stops, he'll be in pretty good shape. But also for the championship, Michael's in great shape.
And Montoya leading the Grand Prix at the moment, and this is Coulthard on Webber.
And Webber's gone defensive into the hairpin. Coulthard says, I'll have a look down the outside then. Breaks much later, has already mentally decided it's worth the risk, that he can trust Mark Webber, and Webber proves to be the professional that he is. And great stuff there, very good driving, a wonderful overtake from Coulthard. Gives him a little squeeze on the way in to distract him, knows he's got space on the outside, better traction from the McLaren, and off he goes up into 5th place, and now he can charge after Michael Schumacher and Justin Wilson then, who had 2 tags in the first corner with other cars. Looks as if he's coasting to retirement, James, with a gearbox full of neutrals by the sounds of it.
Yeah, they have replaced the suspension parts on that Jaguar. There's Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who was also involved in the start line accident, for those of you who have just joined us. Kimi Räikkönen and Rubens Barrichello got together off the start line, and they were eliminated, as was Ralf Furman. Frentzen's out too, and it looks as though Justin Wilson's struggling a little bit. Oh, he's picking the pace up now, so maybe it was just a small problem. Montoya leads the Grand Prix on lap 9 by 2.2 seconds from Jarno Trulli in the Renault. Then this battle here between Alonso in the 2nd Renault and Michael Schumacher. They're 4 seconds behind race leader Montoya. Coulthard, after that pass on Webber, is up to 5th. Webber down to 6th. And then we've got the Toyotas of Olivier Panis and Cristiano de Mata filling the remainder of the points-paying positions in 7th and 8th. With Button now having passed Nick Heidfeld. We didn't see it, but he has passed him. And joining us from the McLaren pit wall now is Ron Dennis. Ron, thank you very much. Part of our Meet the Team with McLaren. You're obviously gutted about Kimi.
Certainly not the way to start a race, but of course the most important thing is he's unhurt. After that, it's a sort of one BMW out, one Ferrari out. So at least it's equal stakes on the other two top teams.
What's your take on the incident, Ron? Where would you lay the blame?
Well, it was triggered really by Rubens' very poor start. I don't think Ralph squeezed Rubens deliberately, but that's what started the sequence. I think everybody was trying to take advantage of that poor start, and that's the sort of incident that happens, I would say, racing incident.
So what can you do? Will you change the strategy now for David Coulthard? Provide you've got to get him in front of Michael somehow, haven't you?
Oh, well, the name of the game now is trying to look after our tyres and try and close the gap, which David is starting to do. Starting to drive actually quicker than Michael. The important thing is to take advantage of when the Renaults stop. You think they're on the softer tyre, that's probably going to give them a blistering problem. So third is possible, maybe even higher.
Do you feel, you've been in the championship fight over many decades, Ron, are you sitting there thinking, I think this year's one is now going away from us?
Well, not really. You've got Ralph out of the picture here, and finished first, the first got to finish. Of course, Michael hasn't finished the race yet. There's a long way to go. Certainly, if he scores points, then that makes his position stronger, but still not mathematically certain.
Thanks, Ron. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Ron Dennis there, team principal of the West McLaren Mercedes team. One of our features this weekend, Meet the Team, and you can see the two Renaults now are spreading out a little bit, Trulli getting away from this battle between Alonso and Michael Schumacher for 4th and 5th places. Fastest first sector of anybody so far in the Grand Prix then on this lap for Michael Schumacher. He's pushing hard, and you can see how hard he's pushing.
It's a percentage game to a certain extent for Michael today. He can't afford to make a mistake. He can't afford to trip over Alonso, and he'll wait till later on in the Grand Prix. Another 57 laps to go yet, as finally Justin Wilson does have to call it a day for his first Grand Prix for Jaguar. A great shame. I think he was a bit of an innocent victim, really, of the carnage in the first corner. But that's the problem when you qualify down the back. You know, your percentage chance of that happening is so much higher.
Well, you remember I said at the start that if Michael Schumacher went 10 laps into this Grand Prix without being in the lead, he would have done 200 laps now since he was last at the front of a Grand Prix. Now, I'm sure the Italian media would call that a crisis. I wouldn't call it a crisis. Clearly, the pendulum has swung a little bit towards Williams, but Rubens Barrichello won the last race, and he's out-qualified Michael Schumacher now for the last 2 Grand Prix. What's going on with Michael?
Well, what's going on is he's leading the World Championship relatively comfortably from a young Finn who's currently, like us, watching this on the telly. So, you know, he's playing the percentage game. He hasn't got the fastest car out there any longer, and nor has Giancarlo Fisichella, who did a stellar job in qualifying yesterday, but it looks like it's not going to be able to show up this afternoon.
Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a sick Jordan there, so maybe that Jordan team are going to have their second retirement of the afternoon. Just to correct something I said yesterday, I mentioned that technical director Gary Anderson had handed in his notice at Jordan. That's not quite the case. He has in fact told them he wants to step back from the day-to-day running of the technical department. He's phasing himself out gradually, but he's not actually about to walk out of the door. Just to correct that, here comes Fisichella then, probably into retirement.
It sounds to me it's like a pit lane limited style problem where it's the engine's cutting out in a very consistent manner, just like when they're coming down the pits. Maybe they can adjust that. They can change something on the electronics or change an electronic control unit, and I would imagine that is what they should be doing, but I can't. It'll be down in the side pod somewhere if they can get to it, a little cubby hole somewhere, and they can reprogram that and hopefully get Fisichella back into the race. But he's well out of the points, of course, but with so few runners, it'll always be worth trolling around this racetrack today. And that sounds healthier on the takeoff, but of course he has the pit lane limiter really does have to cut in. Let's see if he accelerates cleanly out of the pit lane. Meanwhile, Ralf Schumacher is with Louise.
Ralph, huge disappointment at your home Grand Prix. Just talk us through that accident from your perspective.
Well,
certainly it is a big and huge disappointment, but that's the way it is sometimes in motor racing. You can't obviously think for 20 people around you. I mean, sometimes these incidents do happen, but I haven't seen anything in the tele yet to judge it.
Do you think maybe that you wandered too far over to the left-hand side of the track?
No, I mean, I was trying to defend my position, so, and not, you know, in a quick move or anything. So there was all the time in the world for cars to be, you know, to get away from me. But I have no clue. I haven't seen it.
Yes, it is true. It was a gentle move across the racetrack. And normally, Rubens Barrichello, he would have left the Ferrari enough space, but Raikkonen was already on the outside of the Ferrari, and that was the problem. And it seems Fisichella, sadly, still has a problem. We're maybe down to 13 runners.
And don't forget, as Ron Dennis was telling us just a few minutes ago, he believes the whole thing was triggered by Barrichello having had yet another poor start from the grid. There you can see the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher. It'd be nice to have a similar replay of Barrichello, because clearly he got away badly. And if you remember, 2 weeks ago in Silverstone, he got away badly as well. So clearly the launch control not working at optimum there at Ferrari. There's Willy Weber, the manager of the Schumacher brothers, just giving Jean Todt a punch on the shoulder there. Now, Renault look as though they're ready for a stop. This is lap 14, very early, really, in the Grand Prix. Bearing in mind we had 2 or 3 laps under the safety car as well. Indeed, they are. Here's Trulli.
Trulli pitting then. Montoya absolutely storming round at the moment. So how much more fuel has he got? He may be coming in on lap 15 or 16 or something. And Michael Schumacher has been best part of a second a lap off the pace. But, you know, how far can he go? It's all going to unfold, I think, in the next 6 laps, James.
There was certainly a school of thought that Michael Schumacher was carrying a little bit more fuel than any of the other front runners. He was confident in the Bridgestone harder tyre. It was a good setup for him. And therefore, although he knew he was sacrificing a little bit in qualifying yesterday, he knew he'd have a strong run here once the Renaults had got out of the way. He is, though, 10.6 seconds behind Montoya on the racetrack. And as you say, Martin, Montoya's pace is mesmerising. 2.5 faster than any lap he managed last year here. Ted.
James, down at Jordan, I can tell you it is a gearbox problem for Giancarlo Fisichella. That was what the problem is. They tried to sort it out in the pit stop. They fear it's terminal, though. They're trying to bring him in, but now the mechanics are going back into the garage. Has he stopped out the circuit? Whatever. It looks like another duff race for Fisi.
Can't see him out of the window in the stadium area at this time. He may still be coasting around. This is a nice little battle developing. Webber 6th, Panis 7th, D'Amata 8th, all within 1.1 seconds. And Webber's pace so far in the Grand Prix probably hasn't been what we expected from the Jaguar, and the Toyotas still struggling from a relatively poor start and getting very much caught up, Panis especially, caught up in that action in the first corner.
Yep, these guys are really consider themselves to be racing each other in the Constructors' Championship. Jaguar and Toyota. Looked like the Toyota was diving into the pit lane there, but they're battling for 5th place in the Constructors with the BAR team, for whom Jenson Button now is in 9th place, Jacques Villeneuve 11th. Here comes Panis then into the pits, another early pit stop for the Toyota team.
Be interesting to see how much fuel they put in, James, because I think it's really now the way it's working out, not too much traffic on the racetrack, so you can take that out of the computer equation. But will they do? That looked like a full 3-stopper to me. A lot of these cars, I think, were considering a 2-stop race with a very short first stint, but that's not enough fuel to go on to a 2-stopper, is it?
No, you need about 9 seconds worth of fuel to switch over to a 2-stopper. That's about 60 kilos of fuel that would be going in. Well, Justin Wilson very unlucky on his debut with the Jaguar team. He's talking now with Louise in the pits.
That's right, James, very unlucky, Justin. I think you were really a victim of what was going on at the first corner, weren't you?
It's just one of those situations. There's something happening up front, and I had to slow right down to avoid that, as long as with everyone else. And Jack looked like he had to avoid somebody, and I tapped him into a spin. As he was spinning backwards, I was trying to stop and slow down and go around the back of him, and Ralph Furman was coming around the outside of me, considerably higher speed, and we hit wheels.
Team tried their best to keep you going. Did you think you'd be able to carry on?
Yeah, I thought we'd better continue. They did a good job in the repair of the front suspension, and I was hoping to just get some laps in and learn something.
Bad luck.
Thanks.
Bad luck indeed. Montoya leads by 11.1 seconds now as Heidfeld pits in the Sauber. Alonso stayed out. Trulli's already pitted and fallen in back into the race in 5th place. 12.2 seconds behind Coulthard. And there then is a Williams pit stop, can only be for Montoya at this stage, and Webber losing out again under braking as De Matter then steams through, and Montoya getting down to that just 50 miles an hour speed. Ted.
Montoya into the pits. Ferrari are now reacting for Michael Schumacher. This is going to be a good one. Montoya says his rear tyres have been going off. They're going to take out some front wing on this stop. Now, what's the time? That's crucial. Is that a 2-stop? I'm not so sure.
No, I don't think it is. I think he's on a 3-stopper from the looks of things. Here comes Michael Schumacher right behind him into the pits, clearing some debris out from the radiators. Nice onboard shot here. That is a longer, obviously more fuel gone into the Ferrari. Quick reaction by the Ferrari team then.
Well, you don't know if that was the scheduled lap or not, frankly, but part of your calculation, I believe 3 stops theoretically is faster anyway, but traffic is going to be a problem later on. Well, there's so little traffic on the racetrack given that first corner incident, so I think a lot of them will now be considering, with this track temperature, with the information they've been given from their drivers in the early stages, how are the tyres doing, how does the car feel, and then they'll swerve it onto a 3. Then as De Matter pits.
Yeah, what I meant by quick reaction is that Ross Brawn, the Ferrari technical director who does the strategy for Ferrari, he'd obviously just seen how much fuel had gone into Montoya's Williams, whether or not they had time to just put a bit more into Michael Schumacher's car, because obviously it's always those laps when you're coming in slightly later than your rival where you can make up the ground and try and win the race and overtake him. So that it may have been the case. It was very soon after the Williams stop. Perhaps there wasn't time to switch it. Either way, Ferrari are running a longer middle stint than the Williams team as Alonso comes into the pits, who was leading the Grand Prix.
And so does Coulthard behind him, and that looked like a heavily blistered left rear. Remember, the Renaults are on the softer tyre, the softer Michelin, 7.7. Also, surely they'll have to go 3 with the state of those rear tyres, as down the pit straight, a little bit, just got the fuel nozzle out, a few dramas there, but Coulthard away, and it seems as if he was fueled a little bit longer, although some of that was just pure lost time rather than refueling, and away he goes then. Coulthard in play, but I've got to say, famous last words, James, but I think Michael's racing the Renaults today. I don't think he's racing the Williams any longer.
Well, certainly judging by the pace that Montoya was going at before that stop, absolutely mesmerising speed. We haven't seen that speed yet from Michael Schumacher, but bearing in mind, he has been stuck behind Renaults. Now we're going to see how fast Michael Schumacher can go, as Louise is talking with Ralph Furman, another retirement.
Yeah, it's a bad day for the Britons. Ralph, you also got caught up in the melee at the back, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a shame. I didn't see anything at all, and then you know, Hines ended up braking very hard, and I touched the back and damaged my front wing, but I was still okay. And then after the corner, I had going around the outside of Justin, and I think he was trying to avoid an accident and came in the side of me and put me out of the race, unfortunately.
How difficult was it to pick your way through what was going on there? Was it a crazy melee?
Obviously very difficult. You know, everyone slows up so suddenly, and if you don't see any accident at all, then suddenly you're going a little bit quicker than you want to be, and end up in trouble. I mean, the further you are at the back, the more chance of it being an incident. So,
thanks, Ralph.
Yes, I said on the grid, I hope the Brits didn't run into each other, and sadly 2 of them did. I think when Ralph sees a replay of that, he'll see it was a touch, a little bit more than touching the back of Frentzen, and a little bit more than just a broken front wing. The nose was off completely, but nonetheless, he may have been able to recover from that with a pit stop at the end of that safety car lap. Sadly then, Furman and Wilson out of the Grand Prix, as is Fisichella with some kind of gearbox gremlin, Ralf Schumacher, Frentzen, Barrichello and Raikkonen all out of the Grand Prix.
Here's your race leader on lap 20, Juan Pablo Montoya. We've been looking at Jenson Button just before that, battling with Mark Webber. That was the battle for 6th and 7th places. And once again, Jenson Button having a super afternoon after a compromised qualifying session. He was 17th on the grid here, and he was 20th on the last race, 14th the race before that. He's come through successive races now, really dogged driving by Jenson Button through to the points, and today he's already well into the points paying positions. He's going to get 2 points if he finishes where he is, and it could be better. There's a long way to go yet.
Absolutely, and the Jaguar team ready for Webber by the looks of it, and here is an incident where they had to basically park Villeneuve being passed by the Toyota of De Matter. They both stopped once. De Matter must have had a difficult pit stop somewhere. Villeneuve, very good driving by Villeneuve to realise that he was coming in there, because it's so difficult once they're up alongside you to get a feel for exactly where they are as Mark Webber pits from 7th position. The Jaguar team ready. 21 or 22 men in there ready to, and the black dust you see is the brake wear. You see the brakes glowing red under heavy braking. They're oxidizing, and eventually that gets blown out as dust by the air guns.
Okay, this is lap 21 then. Juan Pablo Montoya leading by 14.9 seconds now from Jarno Trulli. Alonso just behind them. Michael Schumacher is 4th, as you can see there. Webber just feeding out with Fisichella giving him plenty of space. Coulthard 5th, Button up to 6th at the moment after the Webber pit stop, but he has yet to make his own stop.
Welcome back to Hockenheim. A long list of retirements, plenty of clear track between these drivers, although Michael Schumacher looks like he's about to run into another Renault blockade. Mark Webber coming out from 7th into the pits to 11th out of pit lane. Neil.
Yes, and it's worth just making comment at the moment, Billy, about these extraordinary temperatures that they're seeing over there and the impact that that has on these race cars and the drivers. When we spoke to our guys on the ground before the start of the race, they said that it was hotter there at this race this weekend than it's been at any other race at any other stage during the course of the year. And if you have a look at the side pod on this Ferrari, it's a great shot of there. Look at the ventilation in the top of the side pod for the radiator exhaust area, if you like, on Michael's car. And you can see that the teams have gone to a lot of trouble. If you get shots of the brake ducting, you have a look at the radiator exits, they're opened up considerably to try and deal with these excessive temperatures. Replay shot of Coulthard just nipping the front left up across the top of that ripple strip. But all the cars... Oh, and here's the problem that they had, almost shades of the French Grand Prix for David Coulthard. A stutter at the exit of that stop, which came on lap 17, 9.3 seconds. A little bit of that, of course, was in the actual delay, removing the fuel hose. This time the communication was good, though, and nothing was yanked over. 45 laps to go. Montoya's still got pace that nobody else has got, Billy. 15.7 on his last lap. And how's this for a number? Trulli with a 17.5, Alonso 17.5, Michael Schumacher 17.1. And looking down to Mark Webber, he's been sort of stumbling along a little bit in many cases in the low 18s.
Here's that battle I mentioned there, Michael running up against Alonso. They thought they might have given him some clear track with his first stop. They did, but not for long. Incidentally, Fisichella's still out there, you might have noticed. He's finished 3 of the 11 races.
Immediately in front of us, and Jarno Trulli just in front of him. Those are the Ferrari mechanics having done their first round of pit stops. And this is what happened at the start. For those of you who are just joining us, you can see at the bottom of your screens there, Ralf Schumacher went defensive. Rubens Barrichello had a poor start, and you had 3 abreast. Kimi Raikkonen tried to go around the outside, and all 3 of those championship contenders were eliminated. Rubens Barrichello explaining the situation there to Gabriele Della Colli, his race engineer at Ferrari. Kimi Raikkonen's out, Ralf Schumacher is out, and Rubens Barrichello is out of the race as well.
And this man is just walking away at the front. It's a wonderful feeling when your car's working and you're thinking, come on guys, where are you? If I drive any slower, I'll have to stop. Everything is underneath you. It's happened to me in sports car racing, and it's just supreme feeling of power and strength at the front of the field. And the big chase is for Trulli, Alonso and Michael Schumacher in 2nd, 3rd and 4th, and Coulthard beginning to reel them back in one more time. And Louise has news on Kimi Raikkonen.
Yes, as we saw in that replay, it was a big impact for Kimi Raikkonen, and he has hurt himself a bit in that shunt. He's got the doctor with him at the moment. He is in the communication centre, not in the medical centre, so not a major problem. The doctor's just giving him the once-over, and we'll give you a progress report later on when he comes out to talk to us.
Yes, I know that, of course, big sideways impact. You've got to be careful exactly where your hands device, the head and neck safety device. I think they're very good forward and aft, but they can come into play with side impacts like that, listening to 1 or 2 of the drivers. And in any event, when you're ripping wheels off like that, there's a lot of energy dissipating through that action. But it was a big incident, and keep seeing it again. He was very lucky to get the beginning of the tyre barrier there and not something significantly harder.
Yes, as you say, a lot of the drivers were concerned with that aspect of the new head and neck safety device, new for 2003. It's mandatory to wear it. And certainly Rubens Barrichello, one of the drivers who doesn't like wearing it, and he was very surprised at Monaco, if you remember, where Jenson Button in practice had a very big sideways impact, that there was no damage to Jenson's neck. Let's hope there isn't any to Kimi Raikkonen's either. and that the Hans device has done its work. As we continue to look at this scrap then for second place, and one of the Minardis is off track. That's Jos Verstappen, who's just made a pit stop. So whatever happened, maybe he was rather held up in his pit stop. The car's got a bit hot, who knows. It quite often happens though, doesn't it, Martin, that people make a pit stop and either a drive shaft breaks or they got a bit hot or something in the pit stop and they pull off.
It does indeed. It appears they may have fixed Fisichella's car. Whatever gearbox gremlin it was as I suspected, well, I still suspect, was an electronical problem. So Fisichella has rejoined the race 3 laps down. So with Verstappen's departure, we still have 13 runners. And the big winner, really, in that last pit stop was Alonso. And that happens so often, James. Whether he's better than Trulli on the in and out laps, I don't know. But he was quite a bit behind Trulli before the pit stop started, and now he's right up behind him. And Michael has cruised up onto the back of the Renaults, but is not exactly menacing them, is he?
He's not. It's a big test of Jarno Trulli here today, about to be reconfirmed the Renault team for next year. And one of the criticisms of him is he's not able to keep the pace up during the Grand Prix, lap after lap after lap, as Verstappen gets out of his car. Clearly Alonso is able to do that. He's able to keep the pace up, and right now you can see that Alonso's right behind Trulli. Could he go faster, I wonder? Well, we won't find out perhaps unless he has a go at him, but Michael Schumacher behind the other two as well. And in this period of the race now, as I say, a big test for Jarno Trulli to keep the pace up lap after lap.
Just edging away indeed then from Michael. Look, the gap was 1.1, is now, well, it's still around a second, actually just over a second. So it's a bit of a yo-yo around the racetrack in terms of where they're faster and slower, relatively speaking. Nothing to choose between the two Renaults. I'm sure I saw a lot of blisters on Alonso's tyres when he came in. We'll have to see how this stint unfolds for them. Coulthard is once again beginning to catch this trio, but he's 10 seconds adrift at the moment.
He is. He's taking a little bit out of them each lap, as you say. He's 10 seconds away. Montoya leading Trulli by 23 seconds, so he's clearly comfortable, but his pace is amazing still. He's well over a second a lap faster than this little train here, and I wonder what their actual pace is. Is Trulli going as fast as they can go, or could they go any faster?
I think they could go a lot faster. Alonso would be hustling him, but there's the race leader then, coming up to lap, towards lapping 11th place man Mark Webber, who's had a pretty untidy race and a difficult weekend, I think, for Mark in many respects, hasn't it? Although he was on for a great qualifying lap yesterday and dropped it in the final 2 turns, he's running 11th at the moment. He's fallen away significantly from that battle he was having with the Toyota team, who remain 6th and 7th.
Yes, he has, hasn't he? He's lapping in the low 1-minute 19s compared to 16s and 17s for the front runners. He was running 6th before his pit stop, so clearly Mark Webber having a difficult time here in the middle stint of this Grand Prix. There's Flavio Briatore on the right, the team principal at Renault. On his left is Pat Simmons, who's the director of engineering and was once Michael Schumacher's race engineer. A very, very experienced man, and really they have done a super job, haven't they, this year, Renault? They thought about this Friday morning testing. Shall we do it, shan't we? They've got so much benefit out of it, that 2-hour session on a Friday morning, which they and Jordan, Minardi and Jaguar alone take part in. And against these big teams they're racing with now, they're really making it work for them.
Yes, indeed they are. And they've crept up on it, haven't they? You haven't seen them make a stunning development at any point. They've just got faster and faster, and what pays them such a big dividend, and it's happened to them for 2 or 3 seasons now, this whatever software they've got for the launch control on the start almost always gains them a row on the grid by the time they get down to the first corner, and that really does pay them back in terms of World Championship points. But you know, James, I'm thinking about this race and that first corner incident, and the safety car keeps the race underway and keeps all the television schedules on course, but you can't help wishing maybe they'd have thrown a red and had a restart.
Well, certainly that was something you used to see a lot more of in the past, isn't it? These days a safety car is much more common, as Button there just makes way for race leader Juan Pablo Montoya. He's now lapped everybody up to 9th place. Nick Heidfeld, there is the Sauber of Heidfeld in 9th position, and Montoya coming up to lap him. Lovely onboard shot then. Here we are with the race leader diving down the inside. It's one of those days when it's all just going right for Juan Pablo Montoya. As Martin was saying, he feels all-powerful and all-conquering. He wants 10 points here today. He's 14 behind Michael Schumacher in the World Championship at the moment, and still quite a long way to go in this Grand Prix. We're not even at half distance yet, so we will see.
Well, if he carries on at this pace, he'll come quite close to, and I'm sure he'll back off later, he'll come quite close to lapping the field, James. Just to give you, it's a relatively short lap, 75 seconds, 76 in race conditions, seems to be the average race pace. But already then 25 seconds clear after 29 laps.
And he needs the two Renaults to do him a favour here this afternoon and keep Michael Schumacher in 4th place, because if they do, and Schumacher finishes this Grand Prix where he is now, with Montoya winning, then Schumacher's lead over Montoya in the World Championship be down to single digits with 4 Grand Prix to go. It'll be 9 points with 4 races to go. And the way this Williams is working at the moment, you'd have to say that Montoya really does look like a man coming fast up on the rails in this World Championship.
Good thing too, it's going to go down to the wire, isn't it, at this rate? It's a pity that Raikkonen and Ralph are not scoring some points too today. Let's look at the relative paces. Montoya now down back into the mid-16s with passing of traffic. So is Trulli. Alonso just falling back a bit in 3rd. Michael 1:16.9. Coulthard 1:16.6, and now just 8 and a bit seconds behind Panis and D'Amata. 20 seconds adrift to Coulthard, but lapping at relatively similar pace.
For the benefit of our viewers who've been following us throughout the season, Martin, just explain why Michael Schumacher here in the Ferrari, who they saw win 4 Grand Prix in the middle part of the season, is now struggling as a second a lap off the pace of Montoya, and does not seem to make any impression really on the two Renaults. How has this change about happened?
Well, we've got a hotter part of the year, of course, the European season. It seems to suit the Michelin tyres. Williams made 2 or 3 big steps on the aerodynamic package, didn't they? And they've had tremendous reliability, as have Ferrari. And just tiny little details gain you a half a tenth there and a half a tenth there, and suddenly it hooks up. The drivers get a confidence, they get a result, and it's a snowball effect. And for some reason, and we said this last year, the 2002 Ferrari was so good. How could they make a big step forward? They didn't. They made a reasonable step forward, but the other teams, as ever, played catch-up and actually leapfrogged past them at this stage of the season. But, you know, as we saw in Silverstone, the Ferrari Bridgestone package was better. Quite clearly here, Williams have been the class of the field.
Director there just looking back. That gives you an idea of the distance between Montoya and the pursuing Renault of Jarno Trulli. He's got to go through all this sequence of corners before he gets to where Montoya was when we cut up. That's a very comfortable lead. 24 seconds now, approaching a half minute, which is a magical market margin that all drivers like to have in their pocket over their pursuing pack. Michael Schumacher is almost half a minute behind him on the racetrack, and it looks as though Trulli's pulling away. Where's Alonso gone? There he is. Alonso has fallen behind Michael Schumacher. So Michael Schumacher up to 3rd place, Alonso 4th. We didn't see why, but either Alonso made a mistake or Michael Schumacher passed him.
Well, when we last saw Alonso, he was about to side up the inside of a car to lap him, and I wonder if he made a mistake in there somewhere, or maybe he's got a gremlin creeping in. Reasonable pace at the moment, but did Alonso get into the Sachs curve and make a mistake? I suspect we're about to find out. And he ran wide in Mobile, look. He didn't get his, it wasn't a back marker, he cleared the back marker. And that was I saw the Minardi waiting there, and I wondered if Alonso got hooked up in that. But actually, he'd made his own mistake earlier on, and McLaren will be grimacing. That's released Michael Schumacher into another point.
Well, it's a good 6 months away from Michael Schumacher's birthday, but that was an early gift then from Fernando Alonso to the reigning world champion. He's now up into 3rd place as we take a look here at Montoya telling Jacques Villeneuve to get out of the way. He's lapping him. Villeneuve in 8th place. You could see his arm coming up saying, get out of it. And that's Alonso running wide.
Yes, and I thought Alonso might have got hooked up with Chiesa there, trying to be overly kind. He should just get on with it and stay on line and move out of the way in better places than the turn into Sac. But Alonso had already made his mistake. I don't know if there was a white flag flying there to say slow a car ahead, or maybe something distracted him, or trying a bit too hard as they prepare for Montoya's pit stop. I was surprised to see that action from Montoya in the cockpit. Why is he getting upset like that? He's got to 26.7 second lead. The fastest car in Europe this afternoon, and he didn't need to show those kind of emotions. I know he's a South American, I know there's a lot of adrenaline pumping in there, but you wouldn't have seen, I don't think you'd have seen Senna and maybe Schumacher doing that, and maybe that's an element that needs calming down.
He comes into the pit lane then. Well, certainly a lot of history between him and Villeneuve. No love lost between the two of them. I bet you that was a big part of it as well. Hopefully he's calm in the cockpit though as he comes in for his pit stop, and Ted will take us through it.
Well, James, they've got to pit Montoya now because Michael Schumacher's been released now that he's passed Alonso. You need about 30 seconds to do a stop. Montoya was 30 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. Does he get out in front of him?
Well, they will find out. We're just waiting for Michael Schumacher to come through the stadium section comfortably in front of him. But don't forget, Ted, that he's also well over half a minute in front of him anyway in terms of track time. So Schumacher will have to make his stop, we believe, in about 3 or 4 laps time. But at the moment, as Martin said, Michael Schumacher today is really racing the 2 Renaults of Jarno Trulli and Fernando Alonso, and one hopes that that battle isn't now over between Alonso and Michael Schumacher, that the Spaniard will have another go at him, perhaps embarrassed by his mistake and wanting to make up for it in the later stages of the Grand Prix as we approach half distance now. This is lap 34.
Getting news up from the pit lane that it's suspected Schumacher is on a 2-stopper, so if that's true, they've both got to stop again. I'd be surprised they didn't put that much fuel in. It'd be a long final stint then, I would have thought. Mata, as we thought, is clearly 3 stopping, and this should be 6 and a bit, just over 7. So he's really racing his teammate back there this afternoon. 6th and 7th, the 2 Toyotas. We've got 2 Renaults still running, 2 Toyotas, and what else? 2 BARs still in the race, but that's the only 3 pairs. Everybody else has lost at least 1 car.
Well, if Michael Schumacher is on a 2-stop strategy, if he switched to a 2, or if he was on a 2 originally, I should say, then Juan Montoya needs to have about 26 seconds in his pocket over Michael Schumacher to be sure that he won't get caught out when they both make their extra stops. Personally, I'd be surprised, but we will see. And the Montoya has that margin in his pocket from the looks of things. Certainly did before his last stop anyway. Bit of a tussle going on there, I could see, between what looked like Heidfeld, Button, Webber. That's the scrap for 9th place. That's Heidfeld and Button. Nice aerial shot of the 2 of them then. And Heidfeld in 9th, Button in 10th. They've been scrapping all race, haven't they? It's been good stuff.
Yes, ironically, with so few runners, still 13 runners in the race, but we have seen some good midfield tussles. Remember, this track provided those last year too, racing all the way down the field.
Quietly, very quietly, the 2 Toyotas are going very strongly here this afternoon. 6th place, Olivier Panis has made 2 pit stops. So has Cristiano de Mata. He's in 7th at the moment, and that strategy seems to be working for them here this afternoon as Heidfeld goes into the pits, releasing Button up into 9th place. Villeneuve is also in the pits, so Button goes straight up into 8th place now as Villeneuve and Heidfeld, who are racing for position, come into the pits.
Montoya, meanwhile, has gone straight back onto the racetrack into the low 1-minute 15s, while Trulli and Michael are late 1-minute 16s. So that just demonstrates his superiority this afternoon.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if that carries over to the Hungarian Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time at Budapest, which is always traditionally a very, very hot race. The sort of temperatures we're seeing here today. There's Heidfeld. You can see popping out in front of David Coulthard, who's in 5th place at the moment. 3 weeks to go, I'm sorry, to the Hungarian Grand Prix, not 2 weeks. This is the summer break, of course, for Formula 1 coming up after this Grand Prix. Everyone's going off on holiday. It's a D-Mob happy today, trying to get as many points as they can before they go off for their summer breaks. Fisichella, who has been fixed up. We thought he might have to retire earlier in the Grand Prix, but they've managed to get that car going, and he is still running, albeit down in 13th place, 3 laps behind the leader.
Coulthard then in 5th. How far will he go? We think he fueled a little bit longer, although there was a bit of a delay getting the nozzle out, or the lollipop went up too fast, or DC was a touch over eager. Don't really know which of those 3, but whatever, a slightly tardy stop for him. But how far can Coulthard go in that McLaren? Can he get into the scrap between Trulli, Alonso and Michael Schumacher and get himself a shot at the podium this afternoon?
Well, he was 7 seconds behind at the end of the last lap, the back of Fernando Alonso, so he's pushing hard. His pace about 3 or 4 tenths a lap faster than the the bunch he's pursuing. And Louise has some news for us from McLaren.
Yeah, we promised to keep you updated on the situation with Kimi Räikkönen. He has now been taken off to the medical centre for further checkups. The good news is he walked to the car that took him there, so he's obviously not too badly damaged, but I think it's wise that the team are being cautious in this situation.
Yeah, they'll probably throw a few ice packs on the Iceman and send him home. It's a long break now to the next Grand Prix. This is the sort of Grand Prix summer holiday break, if you like, and that's an awful long time when you've had a bad result. It really does carry with you in the next 2.5 weeks, and you're aching to get on a plane, or in the case of most of these guys, on your own private jet, to get off to the next Grand Prix and put it behind you, put the last one behind you.
Especially as things look at the moment, Kimi Räikkönen will be seeing Michael Schumacher, who's on target to take 6 World Championship points, move further ahead of him in the title race, and that's not at all what Kimi had in mind. He's managed to keep Schumacher in his sights throughout the season, even though Kimi's only won 1 Grand Prix this year to Michael's 4 so far. But here today, the things are not looking very good for the Kimi Räikkönen World Championship campaign. Looking pretty clever for the Juan Montoya Championship campaign, however. He's 9.5 seconds ahead of Jarno Trulli. It looks like Renault are ready to make a pit stop for one of their 2 drivers, either Jarno Trulli or Fernando Alonso. Trulli's second at the moment, Alonso 4th.
And Alonso is just 6.1 seconds ahead of Coulthard now, so beginning to fall into the clutches of the McLaren driver and losing best part of 3/4 of a second per lap to go with it. He had the blistered tyres, his left rear. This is Jarno Trulli's car. Michael Schumacher homing in. Remember, the Renault guys using the softer tyre, and I think I can see blisters too on the rear tyres of Trulli.
Just tell us what you mean by blisters then.
Where the rubbers basically exploded, little volcanoes, if you like, on the surface. Ferrari getting ready. I think I'd be amazed if they fuel this to the end of the Grand Prix and turn it into a 2-stop race in all. But where the rubbers just overheated on the surface and blistered and exploded, and it kills the grip, absolutely like driving on jelly.
Now you hear us talking about in-laps. See how much ground Michael Schumacher made up on the back of Trulli there as they came in for their pit stops. It was a lot. He cut it right back. This is going to be a real race out of the pit lane for the 2 of them. Is he going to be able to get past him? Long fuel for both of them, very long fuel for both of them. Schumacher is not able to get out in front, but that is a huge amount of fuel going into the car. We're just past half distance in this Grand Prix, and we'll work it out for you if we can, but I didn't see any sort of other delays, did you? It seemed, was that all nozzle time?
It looked it, didn't it? A lot of fuel going in, and well, they've got to get how far? Another 29 laps. Well, bearing in mind they pitted after something like 16 or 17. That is quite a big difference. It's a long way to stretch the tyres. Obviously, the fuel's not a problem if you put enough in. Will the tyres go that distance? And I have to say, what I've seen at the back end of these Renaults, they will be struggling.
I suppose Renault would feel they had no alternative. They had to do what they thought Michael Schumacher was going to do. They second-guessed him. They were right. They both put the same amount, a huge amount of fuel in to go to the finish, and they had no alternative, because if they committed Trulli to make another stop, then he would have lost the position. So let's see now if they can make the tyres last.
We're going in the pits here with Alonso, hoping we were going to stay on board. But you were absolutely right, James. Michael was so much more confident approaching that speed line. He practices that all the time, every time he comes in the pits, all weekend, as most of them do. But he attacks it harder than most, and he gained himself quite a lot of meters, didn't he, on Trulli. Teammate Alonso then, they pitted for 10 and 11 seconds, and again, it is quite a lot of fuel, James. Maybe they are hoping they can stretch it to the end of the Grand Prix.
Unquestionably, they are fueled to the finish, those 3 cars. There you see Michael Schumacher just going through the bottom of your frame. He's ahead now of Alonso, you can see, as he was before that round of pit stops. So Alonso making a mistake a few laps back, which allowed Schumacher through into 3rd place. An expensive mistake from Fernando Alonso. And after 39 laps here at Hockenheim, Montoya leading Alonso by 21 seconds. Coulthard then is up to 3rd place at the moment. Not Alonso, I'm talking about. Montoya is leading Coulthard. Yes. And then we've got Trulli, and then Michael Schumacher and Alonso when it all filters back in again.
Coulthard's looking handy. He was really closing in on the trio, especially Alonso. We know he fueled certainly longer than the others at the first stop, and he pitted later than many of them too. So if he can turn it into a more genuine 2-stopper and not have to carry such a heavy fuel load for so long, So it's critical now when Coulthard makes his pit stop and whether McLaren can bring him into play. Looking forward to talking to Ron Dennis and see what he thinks about this, which I'm sure we're going to do a little bit later in the race. But at the moment, Coulthard going very nicely, as you said, James, up into second place. But Ted is down at Ferrari.
Well, Martin, I've been doing the mathematics, and for sure, well, we think Michael doesn't have to stop again. He is fueled to the finish. That's why we were getting so excited about Montoya's stop. He did need to build a 30-second gap in his pocket. Does he have that 30-second gap? Well, I think he does, but any problem in his third and final stop, and Michael's going to be right with him.
He is, but bear in mind, Ted, that Michael Schumacher's carrying a lot more fuel than Montoya, so he's going to be slower on these next few laps. So Montoya should, certainly given the pace he's had in the early part of the race, have plenty of time in his pocket to build up to give himself the 25 seconds he's going to need to make a pit stop.
Well, he's got 42.7 of those 25 that he needs already in his pocket. That's how far he is ahead of Michael Schumacher. And he's not carrying a fat load of fuel, and he'll get some fresh tyres. So I don't think we can get too excited about that. But he still needs, obviously, you can't lose your concentration, you can't back off, because you never know what happens later in the race. A small hiccup, a puncture, whatever, and you've always got to build whatever cushion you can without punishing the car.
Yeah, the thing we've all got to look out for now as Michael Schumacher comes up to lap one of the back markers. I can't quite see, I think it's a BAR, but either way, the thing we've got to look out for now is David Coulthard. It's Jacques Villeneuve there in front of Michael Schumacher, and they had a bit of history at the Silverstone Grand Prix, didn't they, a couple of weeks ago? It took a long time for Michael Schumacher to get past Villeneuve, but then it was for position. He's being lapped here today. What we've got to watch out for is the Coulthard, Trulli, Michael Schumacher battle. Currently, Coulthard is 23 seconds behind Montoya and 21 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. If he can stretch that out to about 25 or 26 when he makes his stop, he might be able to rejoin in front of the Ferrari, and that's not at all what Michael Schumacher has in mind this afternoon. So, as you say, Martin, Coulthard is coming into play now.
Michael's first flying complete lap was a 1:18.2, so that's slow, but he's got a lot of fuel on board now, and Coulthard has got a chance if he can run just a few more laps to be up there scrapping for the podium place. But he pits, Coulthard pits on this lap, so he's still got a chance, but it's going to be harder then. We hope we could go a little bit further than that. There are the McLaren team. Let's hope that nozzle does its job. He's not under pressure from behind. He was well clear of the Toyotas, and they will fuel him clearly to the end of the Grand Prix, and off goes David Coulthard with a solid pit stop, and that gives him a chance. Michael Schumacher passes him the other side of the pit wall. Alonso still coming down the pit straight. That is going to be very close as to whether, and I think he did, didn't he?
Yep, there's Alonso at the top of your screen, I think. So Coulthard, I believe, got in front of the Renault, so he's gained one position, and David Coulthard has crept in under the wire here very quietly. He's been going about his business, keeping his pace up, and he is definitely a factor here now. He is behind Michael Schumacher, but in front of Fernando Alonso. Montoya leads on lap 44.
We're back and riding with Renault. Certainly Alonso early in the race was up with Trulli in third position, but has dropped back through the field, passed by Michael Schumacher, and on the pit stop shuffle, passed by David Coulthard. Can Coulthard put some pressure on Michael? We see him coming into shot now behind the Ferrari. Neil.
We're seeing some interesting reactive pit strategy here at the moment too, Billy. Probably afforded by virtue of the safety car early on changing the total fuel burn for the race. But some people, notably Trulli and Schumacher, pulling on big loads of fuel. When you're stopping for 10, 11 seconds at a fuel flow rate of 12 litres per second on the refuel, it means you've taken on something in the order of 120, 130 odd litres of fuel. Huge weight, 90 to 100 kilos worth of fuel. So they should theoretically be able to get through to the end of the race. Melbourne, for example, across the teams on average represents about a 3.3 litres per lap fuel burn. Obviously we don't know the accurate figures for Hockenheim, but according to our bush calculations here, we reckon that they may squeeze through now to the end.
A moment ago we saw a not so friendly wave from Michael Schumacher as he went round the lapped car button in the pits.
Actually, I was very surprised to see that Jacques Villeneuve was extremely courteous to Michael. You could actually hear the audio in the background. He feathered the throttle and made room for him under brakes into that corner and let the reigning world champion go by. That wasn't the case at the last race at the British Grand Prix. So he might be trying to chum up, seeing he's in the driver job market.
Big championship focus here. The leader, Juan Montoya, but how close can he get to Michael in the points? Very important couple of battles going on out there as we return to Martin and James.
Lap 45 of the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you. It's a baking hot day here in central Germany. That's Mark Webber. He's currently in 9th place, the only one of the major runners who has yet to make his second stop of the afternoon. There is Ralf Schumacher, eliminated in an accident at the first corner with Kimi Räikkönen and Rubens Barrichello. All three of them were eliminated. Juan Montoya leads the Grand Prix by 46 seconds from Trulli. Michael Schumacher third, Coulthard fourth, Alonso fifth. Then the two Toyotas of Panis and D'Amato 6th and 7th. And 8th placed Mark Webber makes that stop finally. And that will promote Jenson Button into the final points position. Another dogged day of driving for Jenson.
Yes, indeed. Webber will be fueled to the end of the Grand Prix, as we believe now are most of the key runners. We think Montoya will have to stop later on. He's now got a 49-second lead over Jarno Trulli. Coulthard is just eating away then at Michael Schumacher, who's then also catching Trulli. We're going to see a pretty good scrap for second, third and fourth. They are just gently dropping Alonso. Ron, welcome back. Clearly it's now looking very good for Coulthard.
With our strategy a little bit, switching a little earlier to a 2 and getting a bit more range. I think also from what our intelligence is, the rear tyres on the Ferrari and the Renault are definitely suffering a bit more than David. So once we get through the initial understeer graining characteristic, we should be able to close hard on them.
Ron, we believe that neither of them are going to have to stop again, and obviously you don't. So what kind of showdown are we going to have in the final stages here, do you think?
I think the first thing is it's going to be towards the end. I think that's when the tyres are going to be in the worst condition, people are struggling a bit with the oversteer. Step one is to close on Michael, and that's what David's doing, and then you never know, even he makes mistakes. He's just got to be there to take advantage and put the pressure on them.
Clearly you'll be satisfied if he can just take some points out of Michael Schumacher. But second is definitely on, isn't it?
I think it's possible. It's not impossible to overtake on this circuit. And you know, once David gets up to Michael, I think he's going to be giving him a hard time.
And any news on Kimi for us?
We popped him through the medical centre. He's got no broken bones, a bruised leg and a stiff neck. That's all.
Thanks very much for talking to us, Ron. Let's see if you can get second place here this afternoon then in the German Grand Prix with David Coulthard. Ron Dennis there, the team principal of the McLaren Mercedes team, talking to us live from the pit wall, part of our Meet the Team with McLaren here this weekend. There's your race leader, Juan Montoya. Look at the margin he has over third place, Michael Schumacher. And we are set for a showdown then, in the very words of Ron Dennis, in the closing stages of this 67-lap Grand Prix. 19 to go here. Trulli, Michael Schumacher, Coulthard, Alonso, they will all be in play in the closing stages. It's all about managing the tyres, as Ron was just telling us. He believes, as we look at Montoya there with D'Amato behind him, Ron Dennis believes that the Renaults and the Ferraris are using up their rear tyres more than his McLaren and David Coulthard, and that will allow Coulthard to draw up to the back of them towards the end of the race. That's one thing, but how much will badly damaged rear tyres compromise them and make them, if you like, easy catch from Coulthard's point of view to overtake?
A lot, because that hurts you under braking. The back starts skipping around when your rear tyres have gone, and you lose traction on the way out of the corner. So if you have to go defensive, the guy with the better rear tyres will drive past you through the exit quite comfortably. Something Ron said was crucial. They said, we changed earlier to a two-stop strategy than the others, so they did fuel Coulthard a little longer at the first stop, and they've stretched it, they've made it a more even stinted race, and that means his tyres are going to do 2 or 3 less laps to the end of this Grand Prix, and of course they're now all carrying identical levels of fuel, but that is what brought Coulthard into play.
Well, you can see that Trulli's just going through here the battle for 9th and 10th places. with Heidfeld and Webber, and that's allowed Webber to get in front of Heidfeld. He's used that lapping procedure while they were getting out of the way to leapfrog the Sauber of Nick Heidfeld. He is then up into 9th place, 3.2 seconds behind the final points position, currently held by Jenson Button at the moment with the BAR. And in front of them, the two Toyotas still going very consistently. Panis and Tamata. There's Coulthard there. You can see protecting his tyres, and look at him, he's closing in on the back of Michael Schumacher, isn't he? Just a second now behind the world champion. Coulthard the last lap, 0.3 of a second faster than the Ferrari, and Michael Schumacher can see him coming.
Yes, and he's murdering them in the middle sector. He's full half second a lap faster than the two Renaults, or Michael Schumacher in the middle sector, which is why he's able to pull that gap in. And he certainly will. We're on board with Coulthard. You'll now see down in the hairpin Michael into the traffic. If David can get right on his gearbox, he might just be able to follow him through some of this lap traffic. Didn't work that time, though.
Well, we just saw a sign being held out there for race leader Juan Montoya saying switch from the Williams team. We'll try and find out for you what that means, but clearly they want him to switch something from one thing to another. Obviously one of the electronic systems to do with fuel management, possibly gearbox or differential, one of those sort of things. And maybe the brake bias, but I would think that they'd let the driver decide that for himself. But clearly something needs to be switched in the cockpit of the Williams. I hope it's not something that would affect his race performance. He's way out in front at the moment, is Juan Montoya, with Trulli, Michael Schumacher, Coulthard and Alonso pretty close together in the pack, but 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th in this Grand Prix.
Tell you what, James, it's a long time since we've seen this kind of domination in a Grand Prix, except, of course, for Michael Schumacher in the last couple of seasons, in terms of, it's a long time since we've seen anything other than a Ferrari doing it. He is absolutely way ahead, 56.7 seconds. Ted, take it away.
Well, that switch sign is telling Montoya to switch the oil pump on. It's quite a standard thing, James and Martin. I don't think it's a problem. The tyres go on, as is the fuel. No problems there. The last of his 3 stops. Is this a race-winning performance? Off he goes.
It's certainly a dominant performance, no doubt about that. The last little hurdle for Montoya then was a possible glitch in the pit stop. From now on, he's just got to keep the car going, keep himself focused and concentrated, and he's got 16 laps to go to take his 2nd victory of the 2003 season. But we're set for a grandstand finish in terms of the battle for 2nd place, and no mistake.
Mark Webber just out of the points at Hockenheim. Up ahead, Montoya, as you heard before the break, just needs to keep his cool. But that man, David Coulthard, may hold the key to the championship. Jarno Trulli ahead of Michael Schumacher, Coulthard behind him. And that sandwich, Neil, is going to be the focal point of this race from now on.
Absolutely, and it's actually panning out to be a bit interesting. I'd be inclined to be just taking a bit of the pace out of Montoya at the moment. It keeps flogging that thing pretty quickly at the moment. You saw that sign up before, and James made reference to the switch, and we talked about, Ted talked about the auxiliary oil supply that these cars has. There's no oil replenishment allowed during the race, Billy, and the interesting thing about a Formula One engine is, depending on the brand, they use between about 3 to 6 litres of oil per race. And one of the reasons for that is the oil is used extensively as a cooling agent, as distinct from relying solely on a lot of water, because the bigger the radiator means the more drag, the slower the car. So they try and keep the radiators small, and they try and keep the amount of water in the system to the minimum. So they use a lot of the oil on the single ring piston to actually keep the piston and the internals of the engine cool. And that requires another charge of oil, so they have a separate tank on the cars. They hit the button, pump some more oil into it. They also, of course, have to finish at the minimum 600 kilo weight limit, and they burn a lot of oil, they chew off a lot of rubber. In these conditions, the drivers will sweat a lot, so they've got to make sure that that issue is covered. Talking about Webber, he's actually honking along pretty well at the moment.
And he's playing a part in this crucial battle we spoke of. He's holding Schumacher off Trulli, in a sense.
Yeah, he's been on this set of tyres. They're either been repressured or they're a different compound, but whatever. We thought he might have been nursing a temperature problem, but I don't think that's the case. But he's certainly looking stronger now.
Lap 53 of the 67-lap German Grand Prix at Hockenheim. You ride on board with 4th place man David Coulthard, and that's a podium right in front of you in the shape of that red car. Michael Schumacher stands between Coulthard and a very well-deserved podium. The McLaren team, we heard from Ron Dennis himself on the pit wall not long ago that they did a switch of the strategies earlier on than any of their rivals, and it looks as though it might well pay off for them, because Coulthard is protecting his tyres better than Michael Schumacher or Jarno Trulli in second place in the Renault are able to do in the closing stages of the Grand Prix. So can Coulthard make a double pass and get himself up into second place? He's got 14 laps in which to do so.
Yes, he's catching Michael, and he's pushing Michael towards Jarno Trulli. So the gap between them, the three of them, is now 2.4 seconds. And on the previous lap, Michael just got a little bit out of shape. Early signs he's beginning to lose rear grip. But clearly, you don't win 5 World Championships without being a brilliant racing driver, and he's not about to throw it down the road. But Michael is under a lot of pressure, particularly under braking from Coulthard, and DC's doing exactly what he's got to do. Just keep him under pressure and let his tyres fade and keep driving him towards the back of that Renault. And Webber's in the middle of this pack because he's lapping at very similar speeds. We see catching a bit of curb there. Webber now getting out of the way. Hopefully he knows there's 2 cars coming through, and indeed he does. And DC, with a slight error there, has just pulled him off the back. He just caught a bit too much curb on the way through that right curve out of the Mercedes-Benz area, and it's just dropped him back slightly.
Yeah, Coulthard been lapping about 2 or 3 tenths of a second faster than Michael Schumacher for the last few laps, and that's what's enabled him to just pull up to the back. Here's Fisichella then making his 3rd stop of the afternoon. A number of teams have switched from the 3-stop strategies to 2-stop strategies. Certainly most of the front runners have done that, and you can see Coulthard now rebuilding after that little mistake to catch up to the back of Michael Schumacher. That's Fernando Alonso just there at the back of your shot in 5th place at the moment.
Yeah, 6.5 seconds adrift. But Trulli made a mistake in this, and well, we didn't see it, but he did a 1:18.9. He already was in front of Webber, so he clearly made an error somewhere in the stadium complex at the end, and that's allowed Schumacher and Coulthard to close right in behind him, and Trulli now suddenly under serious pressure.
He's under an immense amount of pressure, and you can hear the crowd are beginning to warm to this. They like it very much. There's Mark Webber. He's got a grandstand view of the closing stage of this Grand Prix. This then, a 3-way scrap for second place here today, and 8 points that go with it. That would be very valuable to Michael Schumacher in his World Championship campaign. But from Kimi Raikkonen's point of view, sitting in the medical centre and watching this, knowing he's going to score no points this afternoon, he really badly wants his teammate David Coulthard to take as many points out of Michael Schumacher as possible, and Trulli seems to be recovering from that mistake and pulling away from Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, Michael was very slow in the second part of the stadium there. Coulthard, you saw the tyre wobbling on the right front as he took a curb at well over 100 miles an hour, and watch him close under braking. Coulthard's got the better car of these 3 today under braking, and if he gets a chance past Michael Schumacher, we saw him scythe past a couple of cars earlier on in the race with a lot of confidence in the braking zone. He clearly now understands this spare car. He got 3 flying laps in it before the start of today's Grand Prix. He had to switch to it late on for qualifying. 2 laps in the warm-up, 1 lap in qualifying, and then he was locked into it for the Grand Prix. He now clearly understands it, and it's working nicely. But now they're lapping back in the 1:18s. Montoya's still in the 16s. His lead 45 seconds, and Coulthard's car is just so much better at the front end in the slower corners.
Yes, this stadium section here, you can see Coulthard closing right up to the back of Michael Schumacher. We ride on board now. You can see with the Scotsman, the Schumacher just up ahead. Let's see if we can see why Michael Schumacher is struggling. We just cut away there to a shot of the McLaren garage, and you can see it's out of these 2 corners as well. Now Schumacher needs a good run out of the final corner to get himself down the straight, and they're equidistant as they come down the main straight to begin lap 56.
Strong run from Jarno Trulli. You know, he has faded in Grand Prix, and we've certainly said so, but today he's keeping the pace up. Montoya leads by 47 seconds from the Trulli, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard scrap you're watching.
Well, you could throw a blanket over 2nd, 3rd and 4th here at Hockenheim, not that you'd want to in temperatures like this. But Neil Crompton, if David Coulthard, and he certainly is positioned to do so, can pass Michael Schumacher, where and how?
Well, Martin made a very good point early on that when the rear tyres are going away from one of your competitors, then all you need to do is keep the pressure on, and ultimately somewhere under brakes they'll have to brake too early or they'll slip up, and the obvious place to do that here is between turns 4 and 6, where you go down to the very slow first gear hairpin at turn 6 from a closed rate of 310 kilometres per hour. But in actual fact, I think that David's just drifted ever so slightly from the back of Michael in the last couple of moments. That the Mercedes McLaren team, watching very closely, and Norbert Haug, the manager of the Mercedes Motorsport program, watching the monitors carefully and studying the opportunities here. He's certainly still close enough to have another nibble at Michael later on, but he needs to get on with it, and it's going to be a very difficult job to do. Incidentally, sorry Billy, another good run here for Toyota. Positions 6 and 7, and continues a string of point-scoring performances for that team, so that's heartening for them, not too far from their headquarters in Cologne.
Mark Webber just losing touch with them now. He's a lap down, of course, but he is, as James pointed out, getting a very good view of this terrific battle. There it is, 10 laps to go. Montoya has a firm grip on this race, barring any problems. And we do hope he has a good result here for the sake of the championship, because Raikkonen has lost touch with Schumacher after this result, and the higher Schuey goes, the tougher it'll be for Kimi in the closing rounds. David trying desperately to do his teammate a favour, and of course if he does, he'll do Montoya a favour as well.
Into the closing stages then of the German Grand Prix. You've missed nothing. Juan Montoya is still leading by 50 seconds from Trulli, Michael Schumacher and Coulthard, who are together on the racetrack. There they are. Coulthard has not got particularly close to the back yet of Michael Schumacher. One particular occasion he just began to look as though he was, but it's all spaced out again a little bit now. And in terms of the actual relative pace, that last lap, 0.4 of a second faster for Coulthard. This is the closest he's been then, right up the back of Michael Schumacher into the hairpin. They stretch out again a little bit more on acceleration, but this is going to be a real harem-scarum finish here at Hockenheim.
Well, Jarno Trulli has definitely got blistered rear tyres. You can see the different coloration across the surface. That's why he's beginning to struggle under braking. Michael is faster under braking, Coulthard faster than the pair of them, but at the moment they just can't break through this turbulent air that behind the Renault and get close enough to have a go. But, the other problem is when you're in that turbulent air, you tend to slide more and you hurt your tyres much earlier. That's what's going on to a certain extent with Coulthard and Michael Schumacher, but there then is the view of the fight from the back of the three cars heading down into turn 1. Oh, mind those cones on the inside, David. You'll damage the front wing, but you've got to get very close to them. And once again then, oh, and Villeneuve not really noticing that Coulthard was there. That cost him.
It was Jenson Button, I think, who's a good friend of David Coulthard. He didn't realise that Coulthard, I think, was part of that train, and just compromised him a little bit. Look at those blisters as Schumacher has a go down the right-hand side. Can he make it stick? The crowd are up on their feet. No, he can't. Trulli resists. Will Coulthard be able to capitalise? Comes up on the inside. No, he wasn't close enough. Button there as well, watching from the background. And now Schumacher's had to go around the outside, and he's got him. Michael Schumacher up into second place.
Yes, he got better traction out there on the runoff area. What on earth was going on there? And what a pity for David Coulthard that he got held up by that BAR, because he would have been right in the action, and he just lost a bit of ground. Michael incredibly getting better traction out on the dusty apron, runoff apron there, and that helps him enormously in the championship, and also gives him a car between himself and Coulthard. Coulthard's got to get in front of the Ferrari to help his teammate.
And just listen to the response here of this enormous crowd here at Hockenheim. Well over 100,000 people cheering on Michael Schumacher. 12 months ago they cheered him on to victory, a celebration party for his 5th World Championship. Today I think their expectations were a little bit more under control when they saw the pace of the BMW Williams of Juan Montoya and Ralf Schumacher. Perhaps they thought 3rd was the best they could do today. He's up to 2nd, and this is how he did it.
Yeah, so he went down the outside. Trulli did the only sensible thing and just ran him clean off the road. but with his blistered rear tyres, he didn't have enough traction. And Coulthard's had a go. I thought they were going to touch there briefly, and Coulthard also has had a go, and they're still side by side. Coulthard didn't use any racetrack going down there. He never made it to the racetrack. Trulli wouldn't let him back on. Trulli's run wide this time, and Coulthard goes through then.
Coulthard up into third place. Jarno Trulli, in the space of a lap, goes from second down into fourth place. Those rear tyres, we saw, as Martin pointed out on the rearward shot, are blistered on the Renault. It's costing him dearly. You can see the right rear tyre there of the Renault. And Coulthard now has a chance to have a crack at Michael Schumacher for second place.
But Michael's scampered away. Trulli can barely keep the car on the road. He just dropped it off the road again on the exit of the Sachs curve, right in the back of the shot. But let's see, Coulthard 3.1 seconds adrift. And this was the overtake of Michael. And there, look, Trulli running him wide, but Michael getting the car nice and straight early on and just drove himself back on the racetrack. Somewhat wise the next time around, Trulli wouldn't let Coulthard back in. And here we go again. And that is, he got a better slingshot out of the corner, and off he goes into second place, to the delight of the team.
Yes, a lot of passion here at Hockenheim. Everybody wanted to see the great racing. And there you can see an aerial shot of Coulthard and Trulli.
Yes, and that's Trulli. I think his front tyres are just as worn out as his rear tyres. Remember, Renault went for the softer Michelin, is my information, and it's certainly, as they've chosen to change strategy, make it a two-stopper with a very long final stint. Now they're paying the price. Ted.
Martin, absolutely, that was the answer that all the Michelin teams were looking at. Which was the tyre to go for? It was the Michelin hard tyre that David Coulthard on. Jarno Trulli suffering with blisters on the soft tyre. Renault are usually very easy on their tyres. They thought they could make it last, but not in this heat, no way.
No way indeed. Coulthard now just 2.7 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, and closing quite quickly, so it's not over yet.
It's certainly not over yet. This is lap 62 of 67. And barring any misfortunes, Juan Montoya on target for his second victory of the season, but he'll be miffed to find that Michael Schumacher has gained another couple of points in the World Championship by getting up into second place. He could do with Coulthard passing Michael Schumacher, and there is the Scotsman as Michael Schumacher closes in on the back of Nicholas Chiesa on his debut for Minardi. The 25-year-old Danish driver gets out of the way of Michael Schumacher. Will he hopefully get out of the way of Coulthard as well? And yes, Montoya would dearly love Coulthard to pass Michael Schumacher. Just take a couple more points off him.
Would indeed. That's the gap. Coulthard's got to close down, and there's not too many laps to do it. Chiesa sensibly getting out of the way. He'll be doing his tyres no good at all. They're running so far off the racing line. So he clearly just wants to get to the end and not spoil anybody else's race. Usually you've got to drive, when you get a bit more experience, you've got to drive your own race too. That's the gap then. What is it this time? Coulthard's taken some 6/10 out of Michael Schumacher on that lap. So now it's down to just over 2 seconds. There is enough time to catch him. Is there enough time to pass him?
4 more laps to go then in the German Grand Prix of this 2.85-mile circuit. Just over 10 miles then in which David Coulthard has to try and pass Michael Schumacher for second place, and to really do himself an awful lot of favours after a lot of criticism recently for David Coulthard, some of it warranted, some of it unwarranted. He has a point to prove. Schumacher's got a puncture. Schumacher's left rear tyre has exploded. You can see it's gone flat. Coulthard has passed him. Trulli will pass him. There he is. Alonso will pass him as well. Jenson Button goes round. Webber goes round. Alonso goes round. Chiesa goes round. And the points just disappear out of the door for Michael Schumacher. What an amazing turnaround.
Well, the carcass is staying on at the moment. It's not ripping the bodywork or the rear wing. He's got to sort of press on, otherwise he'll lose more points. Long way to go yet, James. He's got to get all the way down and through the stadium. He's just got to hope the carcass stays on and doesn't start flailing around, breaking up the bodywork. Ross Brawn there, ready to have a look and see if there's been any further damage. And Kimi Räikkönen, that'll fix the bruise on his leg. He'll be leaping up and down in whichever medical centre he's just leaving.
He won't be able to believe it, and he's got the 2 Toyotas now that are going to go past him as well. Panis is 6th. There's Ross Brawn talking to Michael Schumacher. Panis is 6th, the Matter is 7th, and Button is 8th. and now Panis is going round the outside of Michael Schumacher. You can see on your pictures. So that's Schumacher down into 6th place, and as he pits, then D'Amato will go past him, and so will Button, and Michael Schumacher will be out of the points here at Hockenheim.
You know, he's not sure where it happened, but I tell you something, if you run so wide as he did down at the hairpin when he passed Jarno Trulli, you risk picking up a lot of rubbish out there, and I wouldn't mind betting that's where he picked that puncture up, in the move where he was way off the racetrack, then a bit of grass as he passed Jarno Trulli.
Well, we believe that he's dropped down to at least 8th place, possibly 9th now, as Michael Schumacher. Montoya leads, Coulthard is 2nd, Trulli is 3rd, Alonso 4th, Panis is 5th, and D'Amato 6th. A super day on the cards here.
Should be, but what about Montoya then? What does this do for his championship chances, James? It really slingshots him right up there, within, as you said, just a few points of Michael.
Well, if he's going to get 10 points here for the win today, he was 14 behind Michael Schumacher going into the Grand Prix. The computer here at Hockenheim is showing us that Michael Schumacher is in 7th place, which will get him 2 World Championship points. So it's 8 points that he's taken out of him today if he can finish the race where he is.
Yeah, it was, he had a brief, a bit of a sigh of relief there. The Minardi so nearly dropped it and would have wiped him out. And Montoya, they're getting out of shape in turn 2. He's only really racing himself, but he did dirty his tyres going offline as the Minardi was looking seriously wobbly coming out of the final corner. 2nd place man then, Coulthard, Trulli 6.4 seconds behind him now, and Alonso is beginning to home in on his teammate.
Well, we talk so often about Michael Schumacher being the luckiest driver in Formula 1. So often things happen to him in practice sessions, but not in the Grand Prix itself. And here today, in front of his home crowd, it's gone very, very badly wrong for him at the end of the Grand Prix, and the points have certainly disappeared out of the door as a result of it. He looks set to get 2. But just a few minutes ago, he was all set to get 8. And with the championship so tight and so incredibly highly contested this year, Ron Dennis, the team principal of McLaren, can join us now. What did you think of that then, Ron? What about Michael Schumacher's rear tyre?
Well, I think this was forced them into a 2-stop strategy, and we knew their tyres were on the limit. It's not that he forced it, but it certainly put them into a high-risk strategy, and he paid the price. Unlikely to be a puncture, more likely to be a tyre failure coming from the temperature here.
So you think the sidewalls failed then? That's a strong statement, Ron. I wondered if he picked up a puncture when he ran extremely wide, when he was passing Trulli. But you think they pushed the tyre just too many laps?
Yep, it's happened in practice. It's left rear which takes the high load, and I think it's with a marginal tyre, and it took a gamble switching to a 2-stop, and that really didn't pay off.
Thanks very much for joining us, Ron. Your input has been invaluable today from the McLaren pit wall, and you've got 8 points for David Coulthard in 2nd place. Great day's work as we look now at the race leader, about to become the race winner, Juan Pablo Montoya. On his final tour, a final few corners, his wife Connie in the pits we saw a few moments ago. He comes out of the final corner. The mechanics are all there ready to receive him. Sorry, I beg your pardon, not the final corner, final corner into the stadium, as Mark Webber has gone off the racetrack in 9th place. This then, the final 2 corners for Juan Montoya. He picks up his 3rd career victory, his 2nd of the season, and such a dominant win today for Juan Montoya. He was a full minute ahead of David Coulthard in 2nd place.
So we've got to wait a minute then before they come over the line. Michael Schumacher is P7 for 2 World Championship points. Webber and Button were extremely close together for 8th, and I wonder then if there was a coming together there or whatever, why Webber went off. Here comes Coulthard. He's still got the motordrome to go. The Renault's behind him. He's coasting now. He doesn't have to do any more. He has 8 World Championship points in his pocket, providing he clears the line. There he is. And, solid run this afternoon for David Coulthard. There goes Michael Schumacher. His race is over. Although he's 7th, he's more than a lap down, of course. So he cannot make any more places up now, and neither can he be passed. So 2 points for Michael Schumacher. Coulthard unlapped. The only 3 cars unlapped are Coulthard, Trulli and Alonso. 5th place man Panis is lapped, therefore his race is over, as is D'Amato.
So, There you can see them coming out of the final corner. The two Renaults very, very close together. They cross the line with Trulli in front of Alonso. We're expecting Olivier Panis to come through in 5th place. There goes Jenson Button, and more points for him again after such a difficult qualifying session. He's gone and done it again. 17th up to 8th for Jenson Button, a dogged drive. But what about this man now? Juan Pablo Montoya has picked up 50 points in the last 6 Grand Prix. He's a serious championship contender. Michael Schumacher is on 71 points, we think, and Juan Montoya is on 65. It's just 6 points in it with 4 Grand Prix.